Hi everyone, it's Lindsay. I'm back today during the Fall Coffee Lovers blog hop. I'm going to be using the Craftin Desert Divas freebie for my card today. Now I've already colored this up. You can go watch the coloring on my Instagram if you want to, but I felt this video was long enough, so I just cut that part out and put that over there to watch. Now, this freebie will be available during the Fall Coffee Lovers blog hop. It's over in the Craftin Desert Divas shop. I will leave a link to that in the description box below. Now, with this little freebie, you also get this happy fall, y'all. I love that word. But anyway, you get that little sentiment in the set as well. I went ahead and upped that to about 3.5 inches across. I printed that off onto white cardstock. I used my laser printer for that. And now I'm going to use this large inside scalloped rectangle die. This is the largest in the set. And I just ran that through my die cutting machine to cut out that sentiment with the center of the die. I also use that same die to cut 3 of the outer portion, the frame portion. I'm going to layer those up and create a kind of chipboard effect. But whenever you use your digital stamps, for me anyway, a lot of times I have a lot of extra leftover paper. I save all that and I use it for die cutting. So that, you see all my little scraps, that's what I'm using to die cut today. Now I use the grass border die from the Outdoor Landscapes 2 die set. I'm also using that tree and the picket fence. I cut 3 of the trees, 1 of the grass border, and I'm going to cut 1 picket fence. Now I'm just running these through my die cutting machine like I would any other wafer thin die. And now I'm going to use this brand new Falls border die set. It's not falls, it's fall. Anyway, this was brand new this past month, and I used that tree die to go ahead and die cut a piece of cardstock. That's actually going to go on the back side of my card that I'm making here. So I needed that to go up a little bit on the cardstock and create kind of a longer panel with that. So I'm going to be coloring up my die cuts with my distress inks today. I wanted something very quick and easy, and I didn't want to switch around with my cardstocks. I wanted to use up those scraps. So whenever I like to use up my white scraps, I go in and color with different mediums. Today I decided to go with distress ink. So for the picket fence, I used a little bit of antique linen, and I didn't really do a whole coloring with that. I just went in different places to kind of give it a worn and aged look. You know, not all picket fences are stark white. They get dirt and grime on them, and I kind of like that look. Now for the little tree bases, I'm using some vintage photo first, and then I came back in with a little bit of walnut stain and just went over certain areas of it, kind of blended it in for a little more texture. Now on the grass border, you can see here, I did not worry about the bottom of this so much because I'm going to trim that up later on. But for the top of that, I'm actually going to start out with some crushed olive. And I just sponged that onto the top of the grass. And I brought that all the way down the entire panel. Then to darken that up and add a little bit more dimension to that, I'm going to bring in some mowed lawn and just go over the top portion of that and blend between the crushed olive and the mowed lawn to really get a nice blended look here. I find that whenever I just use one distress ink, it's a gorgeous look, but whenever I add another one, kind of a darker, and mix between the two, it just adds so much more to my finished scene. So that's something I like to do quite often. Now to mask off this tree border die to do different colors on it, I actually die cut the same border from some just computer paper, typing paper, thin regular paper. I'm going to mask off the bottom portion of that, the hill border. I'll go ahead and tape that down, and I am working over a scrap piece of paper. Then I'll go ahead and use my Fantastics tool for the smaller bases of the trees. I wanted to get some brown in there. If you wanted to, you could skip this step and just color them like all red, all green, something like that. I wanted to go and do a little extra step here. And to get these small little areas, I like to use those Fantastic tools. They're very cheap. I keep one for each kind of color group. So I've got one for blues, one for reds. And then if you're using a lighter color, all you have to do is scribble off the remainder of that onto a scrap piece of paper, and you can go right into another color. It's not going to transfer much. So for the tops of the trees, I'm using some fall colors. I used Fired Brick. I'm moving on to some Spice Marmalade. And then this is mustard seed that I'm using now. And I'm kind of blending these into the base of the tree, so that brown a little bit. If you'll notice when you look at trees, it's not a straight line. I did that at first and I wasn't really happy with the look of it, and that's why I brought in that Fantastics little sponge tool to kind of help blend it up into the top of the tree. This looked a little bit more realistic to me. I used walnut stain on the top of the tree, and now I'm just going back through the colors. So I went back to my fired brick, go back to my spice marmalade, and that will do it for the tops of the trees. Now I need to go ahead and mask those off. So I just brought up that paper that I used on the bottom, masked what I could on the top of them, and then I'll come back in and do some more precise masking with some post-it notes. And to get more use out of these and kind of stretch them a little bit further, I just trim them down a little bit into like 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch strips, and that just allows me to use fewer and get more of a precise mask without cutting out masks. So on the bottom of this, on the hill portion, I'm going to do the same thing that I did down below. I'm just going to switch the colors. So I am starting off with mowed lawn, and I will go ahead and mask that, or put that on at the very top, and I'm bringing it down just a little bit towards the bottom, and then I will come in with with crushed olive, and I'll go ahead and blend that up from the bottom towards the mowed lawn. That's what I'm doing here, and you can see they just blend together beautifully. Now, once I pulled this away, I noticed that I missed a little bit at the top of the trees, or the top of the border there. So what I decided to do was take one of my Fantastics tools. Again, this is my green one that I use for all my green colors, and I'm just going to blend that on to the very top of that border. I am so glad I did this. It added even more dimension to that. It kind of deepened up the color a little bit, and it allowed me to fix those little spots that I missed whenever I masked beforehand. Also, when adding this, it kind of gave the effect that the trees were leaving a shadow like they do in real life. So this was kind of one of my little happy mistakes where I needed to fix a mistake, and it ended up being a really good thing that I did. So moving on, that happy fall sentiment panel that I created, I'm going to add a little bit of blue to the bottom of that. Now I don't want to go into the sentiment at all. I want to keep that nice and white. So I'm starting out with a little bit of salty ocean, blending that up as far as the sentiment and no further. Then at the very bottom of that, just to deepen it up and add a little bit of more interest and dimension, I brought in a little bit of Mermaid Lagoon. Now this is where I needed to do a little bit more die cutting that I couldn't do in the beginning. I overlaid that tree die just as far up as the sentiment. Then I placed that die that I used to die cut the sentiment right over that tree die border. I ran that through my die cutting machine, and now this die cut will fit directly on that Happy Fall Y'all sentiment panel that I have going on. Now this is the only thing that I am going to glue to the sentiment panel. The rest of it is going to be glued to the frame. So I added liquid glue to the back of that. I find liquid glue works the best for me when I'm doing scenes like this. It gives me a little bit more playtime to move things around. You just need to be careful when using your liquid glue with your distress ink. Sometimes it can move around your ink, so you don't have a lot of movability with it, but you get a little bit of playtime just to make little corrections here and there. Now with those frames, I die cut 3 like I said, and I'm just going to layer these up on top of each other to create a really thick, almost chipboard-like effect. I like to do this a lot with my die cuts, especially like my word dies or my frames like I'm doing here. It just adds so much more, and then I don't have to go through and cut fun foam or foam tape to fit on the back of this. It's just easier for me to do and go this route. So for those trees, I need to work on this part of the scene from what you're going to see in the very front to the back. So I'm not going to be layering anything up. I'm going to be going from front to back. So it's kind of opposite of what you would do, say, on the sentiment panel in the background. So the first thing that's going to be in the very front was those trees. I layered up 2 on one side, 1 on the other, and I moved those around a little bit so it didn't look like it was the same die cut. They look a little bit different, each one to the next. Then the next thing you're going to see is the grass border. So I put that down, and I'm putting an acrylic black on top of these and letting them dry in between. That's why there's so much cut out here. I find that if I just let it dry for a few seconds and then leave it alone for a minute, it works out a lot better than if I just try and rush it. So this process does take a little bit, but I end up spending more time if I try to rush it along. Let's just put it that way. Now for the next portion, I needed to go ahead and put down that picket fence panel, and then it was time to put everything onto a card base. I'm using an A2 side folding white card base here. I went ahead and centered up the sentiment panel, and that is the inside die cut of this frame, so everything's going to inlay very nicely here. Then on the back of that frame, after it had dried, I put some more liquid glue on the back of it. Again, I just really find that liquid glue works best in this situation because I get that tiny bit of play time and just I can move it around slightly to where it fits very nicely. Now, once I was done putting the liquid glue on the back of that, very, very carefully, I had to move my hands around a little bit so I didn't screw anything up. But once I got it down, I went ahead and lined that up with this sentiment panel. And now I'm just going to put an acrylic block on the top of that, and I walked away and let it sit. Then I came back and I had my little owl colored up, ready to go. I had fussy cut him out and I put him on the left-hand side in the corner. And that finished the card off for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was a little bit longer, but I'm going to leave you guys with pictures of the finished card. And don't forget to head over to the Craftin Desert Divas shop, pick up this digital stamp set for free. You can make a card of your own and link it up over at the Coffee Lovers blog hop. I'll leave that link in the description box below. Also, when you link up, you are entered into a prize drawing to win some amazing prizes. There are so many great sponsors for this blog hop. That does it for me today, guys. Over on the left-hand side, you'll see all those links you can click on, but the bottom left will take you to my blog where you'll find more information on the blog hop and the stamp set. The bottom right will subscribe you to my channel if you aren't. Thanks for watching today, guys. Happy crafting.